let me now bring in retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert and former senior intelligence officer at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Andrew Borene, and senior fellow at the National Security Institute as well. Gentlemen, good morning to you. General Teichert, let me just start with you. We saw Iranian missiles firing well after the ceasefire deal was announced. To Robert's reporting there just now from the UAE moments ago, 17 missiles and 35 drones today alone. I mean, how confident are you that this is going to hold for 2 weeks?
Markie, I think the understatement of the day is Robert Sherman saying this is a distrusting environment. But I think some of the dynamics that are playing out very likely could be because the command and control of Iran has been severed for the last 5.5 weeks. There's a lot of independent units that may be doing independent things, and those things could ultimately unravel the ceasefire. And so we're going to see if some of those rocket launches or missile launches stop. We're going to see if there's no strings attached to flow through the strait. And we're going to see if Iran starts to negotiate in good faith on Friday. And if any of those things don't happen, then this could unravel pretty quickly.
Andrew, you say that this has now become a multipolar chess match. Break down for us, how critical these next 2 weeks are going to prove, if in fact it holds. And also, do you agree with the president touting this as a complete and total victory?
I'll start with the multipolar chess match, Markie. When I said that, what I meant was there are bigger state actors at play here than just Iran alone. China and Russia vetoed a UN resolution. I think China and Beijing had a very heavy hand in pushing Pakistan to mediate this and open the strait. If you look at where oil exports, liquid natural gas exports go out of the Strait of Hormuz, it is orders of magnitude larger with impacts on Chinese gas prices and Chinese fertilizer prices than it is on the United States or even on Europe. And so when I say multipolar chess match, I talk about that whole axis of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And with the North Korean component, this might be viewed as a pause where North Korea simply stacks up more missiles and more technology for offensive Iranian operations, because this is not an armistice. This is a temporary ceasefire.
General, Andrew just brought up China there. The other thing I found interesting yesterday, as we were starting to learn everything in real time, is that apparently there was last-minute intervention by China, asking Iran to show flexibility, diffuse tensions. Were you surprised that they were involved in this, in trying to calm things against the United States?
Markie, I wasn't. And in fact, I would be shocked if they hadn't been working for the last several weeks to try to calm down the tensions for the reasons that Andrew just mentioned, which is that they are far heavily reliant, more so than us or even Europe, on energy flow through the Strait of Hormuz and out of the Arabian Gulf. And they are impacted by instability in the region. And I suspect throughout this conflict that they were working with the Iranians to try to find an off-ramp. And I think they saw the looming deadline of last night at 8 p.m. as an opportunity to use additional leverage to try to create some situation to bring stability back to the Gulf because of the energy flows that they rely upon from there.
Hannah, let me bring you back in from the White House now and talk to me about this 10-point plan that Iran has put forward on the table. Some of the points on it include, but are not limited to, Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, lifting all primary and secondary sanctions on Iran, and the acceptance of enrichment for its nuclear program. The White House put out this statement last night saying they believe it's a workable basis on which to negotiate. Those seem like non-starters from everything we've heard from the Pentagon and the White House the last 5 or 6 weeks, Hannah.
Markie, that's right. Some really difficult points included in that. But I think what the White House is saying is that this is a jumping off point. They're giving it 2 weeks to have these negotiations unfold. We heard Vice President Vance say earlier this morning that the United States still believes they have the leverage here. They have military leverage. They have economic leverage. And he says it's up to the Iranians what they come to the negotiating table with, telling them they better come in good faith and they better, work with the United States towards an agreement here. I think that enriched uranium is really going to be a major sticking point. It has been in all of the previous talks. President Trump, in an interview with AFP last night, saying that the United States is going to take care of the enriched uranium currently in Iran, though he didn't give any details about how. And so far, details have been limited about what the president is willing to do to achieve that objective. So a lot of things remain to be seen about how the United States gets what it wants here in this agreement. But certainly a lot of those points that Iran has put forth are going to be some difficult sticking points in the talks to come.
Yeah, and particularly the Strait of Hormuz, because after all, this 2-week agreement was reached, subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the strait. However, let me play some sound, because Democrats say the president has not loosened Iran's grip over the Strait of Hormuz. Here's Senator Chris Murphy.
If you accept even part of the Iranian statement, Donald Trump has agreed to give Iran control of the Strait of Hormuz. That is extraordinary. If, at the very least, this agreement gives Iran the right to control the strait, that is cataclysmic for the world.
Andrew, the Iranian statement mentions that safe passage through the strait will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces. Can we accept this?
Well, I think that's the devil is in the details now, right? I think we have seen what was the aversion of what was a very credible threat of massive infrastructure attacks against Iran, and now the devil's in the details on the strait issue. And I think it would be unacceptable, not only to the United States, but it would be unacceptable to European partners where a lot of these exports go if, in fact, Iran held the keys to the strait and the passage of vessels. So I think when they say coordination, what does that mean? We've also got to worry very much about a say-do gap. And when I say the say-do gap, what I'm talking about is the Supreme National Security Council of Iran can say that there's ceasefire. However, the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy or Revolutionary Guard Corps ground units or missile units, they're already on a mosaic delegation of authority. So, I mean, you can imagine many different ways that disaster could ensue if Iran appears to be acting in bad faith. And I do find it very hard to believe that the U.S. or any European partner would accept Iranian control over who gets a ticket to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
General, let me just ask you one, because so much of this still seems so nebulous, right? And when the White House says they're calling for complete, immediate, and safe opening of the strait, what does immediate mean? And realistically, how quickly can we see that happen?
Markie, I think it's a combination of not just Iran allowing the free passage in the strait, but those shipping companies and their insurers believing that this is true and that it is lasting. And so I think it's going to take a while for there to be enough confidence amongst the shippers themselves that that free flow of transit can actually take place, because their money is on the line and their assets are on the line. And until they have that confidence, I don't think there's going to be a large amount of flow through the strait, because they're going to wait and see if indeed it is safe.
I got to end things there, but Andrew Borene, Brigadier General John Teichert, thank you both for your time.